All rise, the Supreme Court is now in session. Judge Megan presiding. Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Calling the case of 2018 RDKP. Is everyone ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
People call CSI Principal Investigator Amanda Mendoza to the stand.
Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Alexandria Barbie has been a victim of a recent car crash and fire incident. The victim was last seen alive on April 20th, 2018. The evidence will show that on our day of discovery, May 17th, 2018, Barbie was found dead in a pink vehicle near Lake Texoma. I have a sketch and a few photos of the scene to show the jury. The crime scene was located at the end of a cul-de-sac approximately 25 feet south of the main road. The victim and the car were found in a shaded area under a canopy between trees. The victim's body was originally found seated in the vehicle, but was later found lying in the car with her legs under the vehicle and the door open due to witnesses disrupting the scene. Half of the victim's body showed burn marks, possibly due to the fire from the car crash. Near the victim, the first officers on the scene found strands of hair and strips of blue striped fabric. We believe these items to be from the perpetrator or perpetrators. Approximately 20 feet away from the pink vehicle was a USPS vehicle crashed into a tree with one victim under the car and another in front. The wires of the car were cut and the car was painted with the message possibly intended for the victims. The two victims involved in the UPS crash are still unidentified at this time. At this point, we decided to investigate this incident as a possible homicide. There were also 4 female witnesses present at the scene, only one with a direct connection to our victims. After talking to the witnesses, collecting evidence, and further investigation, the CSI team was called in to calculate a post-mortem interval estimate. We believe this information will allow investigators to determine a more accurate timeline of the scene, find the perpetrator or perpetrators, and bring justice to the family and friends of Alexandria Barbie and all the other victims.
Thank you, Principal Investigator Amanda. That is all we need from you at this time. The people now call expert forensic entomology team to the stand. Please stand. Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your first and last name.
Rupinder Sandhu.
Adam Hassan.
You may be seated.
What qualifies you as expert forensic entomologist, and what does this have to do with solving this crime?
We've been trained by Dr. Heather Ketchum, who is an expert forensic entomologist for the state of Oklahoma. According to Entomology in Depth, a procedure guide, the field of forensic medical entomology includes determination of the time or location of death by collecting and identifying arthropods from or near the corpse. We are trained in obtaining an adequate sample of appropriate specimens, correctly identifying and properly preserving them, as well as interpreting the data. We are able to determine estimates of the time in which a body has been exposed to insect activity. Since insects are often the first to arrive at a scene, this estimate is known as post-mortem interval, or PMI. According to Isaac Joseph, in his article, The Use of Insects in Forensic Investigations, flies can typically locate a corpse within seconds by smell alone. Once they arrive, they use sight to find the body, then lay eggs. We collected various specimens on the day we discovered the body and have analyzed the data to determine the post-mortem interval, estimated about April 30th to May 14th.
And how did you come to estimate this post-mortem interval of Alexandria Barbie?
Due to incorrect sampling of our collections, we repeated these calculations for 3 species found at the scene. The specimen we used to solve for our PMI were Cochleomai macellaria, Formica regina, and Phoenicia cerulivarius. Each of those 3 species of flies are unique and lay eggs on the body of victims when they die. These eggs then go on to 4 different developmental stages, which are shedding processes needed for the eggs to reach adulthood. Knowing the developmental times for each of the flies to reach these stages, we use these times during the developmental stages before adulthood. The fly is referred to as maggots.
In entomology, there are 2 ways to use insects to determine how long a body has been there. The first is insect succession. This is a process that looks at the arrival of specific groups of insects that correspond to different stages of decomposition. However, this isn't preferred because there are other factors that can influence the results and are not considered in this method. For example, wave jumpers. These are insects that happen upon the scene by accident or in an ultimately different manner. This single factor can significantly alter the PMI estimate. The second way we determine PMI is by using linear approximation estimation method. We believe it to be the more accurate because it is considered the direct correlation between the actual recorded temperature and the forecasted temperature.
So to begin the process calculating PMI, we took the raw data from the iButton. It's a device that records temperature readings in 15-minute increments, which we placed upon the scene when we arrived. We used this device to determine the temperatures prior to our arrival to the scene. We got the average temperature readings from the nearest weather station, located about 7 miles away, Buncombe Creek. We then used this data to create a graph that allowed us to estimate the accurate temperatures for the days prior to our arrival. Through investigation, we discovered the minimum temperature required for the development of species we found at the scene. We then calculated accumulated degree days, the relationship between the rate of insect growth and temperature. The accumulated degree day calculation depended on what phase of the third developmental stage this specimen was in. And now I'm going to show you how we calculate our PMI using my iPad. So this is the graph that we produced out of the average temperature from the iButton and the forecasted temperature from our local weather station, which is about 7 miles from Oklahoma Biostation and the death scene. It's Buncombe Creek. And so I'm going to go ahead and describe how we get this equation for the line and how we get our R-squared value. So to start off, here we have the iButton values that we got from the iButton. And we took the average for each day. So here is the averages for each day from the 17th through the 23rd. The 17th was the first day we arrived at the scene. In our calculations for this graph, we, however, decided to exclude May the 17th and May the 23rd because we didn't have complete data points for the entire day, and it made the graph less accurate. So we excluded them due to the fact that we didn't have the complete temperatures for the entire day. So next we compared these to the temperatures from the weather station. That's what this is right here. So we took the Fahrenheit temperatures that the weather station gave us and converted them into degrees Celsius. So from the weather station, we actually have every data point because we can go back into history and see all the way through the last day that the victim was seen, which was April 20th. So now moving to how we created this graph. We plotted the 5 days that we had, the 18th through the 22nd of May. Through this, we created a line. That's this equation right here, y is equal to 1.1256x minus 4.2126. So this is the line that we got. And then to get the actual weather temperatures prior to the day we arrived, we simply plugged in the weather station data for X and solved for Y, and this gave us our actual temperature at the crime scene. The fact that our R-squared value here is 0.98 and very close to 1 means that the weather we got from the weather station is really close to and really similar to the actual weather at our death scene. So that means we had really accurate temperature readings. So at this point, the calculations were species dependent. So for this one, we're going to start with Phormia regina, which is commonly known as the black blowfly. When we found it on the 19th of May, that was the first day we saw the third phase of their development. We found them in the moderate form. So there's an early and a late form, and we found them in the moderate form. But in the literature we only have calculations for how long it takes to get to the early instar stage and the late instar stage. So we had to average these two together right here. And we calculated the ADD with this calculation. The time, which comes from right here, the time it takes to get to the instar stage, minus the average temperature, which we got from averaging our daily temperatures, and subtracting the baseline temperature, which also comes from literature. So this gives us our time to the early third instar stage, and then this one gives us to the late instar stage. So by averaging these two together, we were able to get to the moderate instar stage, third instar stage. So for this one, we got 176, and the way we find out the date on which this occurs, we take the sum ADD which essentially adds all of these together, and we find which date correlates to the closest time. And through this, we discovered that the Formia Regina was closest to May 14th, according to Rowe. A similar way will happen with the Phoenicia Cerularides. So on this one, we also found moderate third instars on the day we found these maggots. That was the 18th of May. So again, we had to average the two time periods. And through this, we were able to find the sum again. So this sum ended up being 158.97. Again, looking at the sum ADD, we find that this is closest to May 10th. So these two dates are pretty similar, so we know we're kind of on the right track. For the Cochlea macellaria, this is our third species. This is the secondary screw worm. We found that the maggots were found on the 17th of May. This is the day we actually discovered the body, so due to improper collection methods, we had to find the other maggots in other ways. So for this one, we found that it was in the early stage, so we were able to just straight up use the early stage ADD temperature, which was 71.598. So through that, this is the 71.598 right here. So through that, we were able to determine, using again the sum ADD, that it was closest to April 30th.
Are there any factors which could change your estimated PMI?
Yes, our PMI could have been altered due to several different factors. One of the first things that we took into consideration is the fact that half of the victim's body appeared to be burned. Due to the fact that we're only entomologists, we are unable to undoubtedly confirm that this was in fact a burn. We would need to send in a skin sample to a lab to confirm that fact. However, we can predict what would have happened to our PMI if it is in fact a burn. According to Whitaker, burns before death or just prior to death would increase the smell of the body and attract more flies to it faster, decreasing the PMI. However, if the burns occur after the first flies were already colonized after death, these burns would eradicate the insects that have taken up in the body and prolong the PMI. A factor that could play a role in altering our estimated PMI is that the body was found in a shaded area rather than full sunlight. According to Entomology and Death procedural guide, insects are poikilothermic, meaning they cannot produce their own heat and that they depend on environmental temperature. The warmer it is, the quicker the flies will grow. So if the maggots are in the shade and only partially in sunlight, it will take them a longer time to grow. This in turn will alter our PMI by making it seem the maggots were there for a longer time than what they actually are because of the growing slowly in the shade.
Thank you for your statements. In conclusion, on May 17, 2018, Alexandria Barbie was found dead in her car in the woods north of Lake Texoma. The evidence has led the investigators to suspect cause of death to be due to car crash and a fire. On the same day, approximately 20 feet away, two other unidentified victims were found in a USPS car crash. Various evidence was collected at the scene, including strips of blue fabric resembling the USPS form, strands of hair, and a shotgun shell. After evidence was collected and further investigation, the CSI team came together to calculate the post-mortem interval estimates. In this case, were a range of April 30th to the 14th of May. Members of the jury, you have heard all of the testimony. It seems that there are still questions to be answered regarding this case. The prosecution may now cross-examine the witnesses.